Hey, it's Jim Show with Structure Fishing. I'm going to tell you about my trip to Canada, Red Lake. I'm going to talk about the structures we fished, how we found the fish, the depth and speed it took. I'm going to show you what these structures look like. And then I'm going to show you our results at the end of this video with all the fish we caught here. But this was my fourth year in a row going to Red Lake, Ontario. It is pretty much the town of Red Lake. Here's Google Maps, and the town of Red Lake is pretty much as far north as you can drive. Red Lake itself is actually a pretty popular destination, mostly for flying. Since it's as far north as you can drive, a lot of people will drive to Red Lake, then they hop on a float plane, and then they'll fly to these other remote lakes. But Red Lake itself, that's one reason I like going there because it does not get a lot of. There aren't a lot of resorts up there. It's not nearly as popular as Lake of the Woods, Eagle Lake, and all these other lakes. But it's 43,000 acres, a lot of water there, and there's only a handful of resorts on the lake. And we're fishing mostly the west end of the lake. Our resort that we stay at, Lodge, is Black Bear Lodge, which is located right here. And really quick, that lodge is like a wilderness camp. It's pretty remote. It's 12 miles to get there on this logging road here, so it's one of the remote lodges to get to. It actually makes it a little fun, in my opinion. But it's a great lodge, and you might have it. There's another lodge on the end here called Bow Narrows. Never been there, but you get there. You can only get there by boat. But anyway, there aren't a lot of resorts on the lake at all, especially on the west end here. You don't find too many people fishing the lake. This coming out this far west. Even if you fish close to the town, which we have done, and you still don't see a lot of boats here. But I'm going to go over a couple of the big structures or good structures that we fished that were very productive for us. When I'm fishing a lake, I like looking for the largest structures that are out there. The largest structures, in my opinion, are going to hold the biggest schools of fish as well as the biggest fish. And one of the biggest structures on this end of the lake is right here is a knockdown area called Wolf Narrows. And just outside Wolf Narrows, there's a big bar here. We've been fishing it for the last couple of years, catching a lot of walleyes there and some nice northern pike over there. And it is one of the biggest structures on the lake. And I think it's also, in my opinion, probably one of the most popular structures on the lake. You will have several people from town take the boat ride out here to fish this structure for walleye. Um, Although we fish close to town, and you don't have to go that far. If you people that live up here in Red Lake, you can. There's walleyes everywhere. But anyway, let me get back to the structure over here. It's a big bar over here, and I mapped it with my Garmin unit. And I'm going to pull that map up here for you. What I actually did was I stitched together the maps on my Garmin unit, and I thought it'd be pretty cool to overlay it on the actual Google map here, so you can sort of get a perspective on what this structure looks like on the water. I'm guessing this thing is 3/4 of a mile, maybe, yeah, about maybe 3/4 of a mile by maybe a quarter of a mile wide. And I always, past years, had thought it was this big bar here. And as I was fishing it this year, I noticed it started to get a little shallower. So I started making some passes out here and discovered that there's a hump connected to this big bar over here. And most of the crown of this hump is 7 feet, but there is one spot, and I found it, that gets as shallow as 1 foot. And I should say my prop found it. But boy, that made the structure even more productive and more of a good structure to fish with everything you got going on here now. And like I say, you do get people from town coming to this, all the way out here fishing this thing for walleyes, although there's plenty of walleyes in town to catch. But sometimes you go out here, we're the only boats out here. I think last year when we were here, there were as many as 7 boats fishing this thing. But most of the time, you might find a boat comes in, fishes it for half an hour, then they leave. But it is a very well-known structure, although I don't think hardly anyone really knows what this thing looks like. Um, unless they've mapped it with a unit like this, but I don't think they have because I didn't never seen anyone concentrate on any of these fingers over here. They're usually fishing over the top of the structure, and I fish the top as well as everybody else. And the only I don't think you're gonna it's gonna be hard to catch a walleye over 18 inches going over the top of the structure here. You might get one over 18 inches every 20 fish you catch, but most of the fish that we're seeing, I see that are caught over here and that we're catching, if you're fishing the top of this thing, are going to be walleyes usually up to 16, 17 inches, not too many big ones here. But what we did, we got this thing mapped here. I wanted to, one day we came out here, there were 2 or 3 boats and they were pretty much scattered on this thing, drifting it. So I figured, well, I might as well go on one of these points here and anchor. And there was a boat a little bit too close, and I think this would probably be the best spot. Let me zoom in on just the map portion of it here. Here we go. I want to anchor over here at the end of the bar, breaking the deepest water. That'd probably be the contact point, one of the best spots to fish. But there was a boat over there, so I went over to this finger here, and we were catching some really nice walleyes off this thing. Where we were seeing them catch all these small walleyes up here, and Casey and I were anchored over here, casting into the deeper sections. And the first time we threw the anchor down over here, in 30 minutes we caught 4 walleyes over 24 inches. It was actually a 24, 24 and a half, a 25, and a 25 and a half inch walleye over here. We came back on a couple of times during that week and caught several more walleyes over 24 inches off this finger over here, as well as this saddle situation you have over here. We caught some nice big walleyes over there too. One of the keys for catching these bigger fish on this trip was speed control. I'm not a fan of live bait. I never really used live bait in the past other than in the fall for crappie. Nothing against live bait. I just, more challenging or rewarding to me saying that I don't use live bait. But if it means putting fish in the boat, I'll use it. And I got to give Casey his props because Casey's the one that pushed me into getting these these bottom bouncers and night crawler harnesses and start using those. And we, every structure we fished, I always had to make a pass with the cranks, see if there's any active fish on there. We didn't catch anything, and then we would go down to these bottom bouncers, crawler harnesses, and start catching fish. And the reason we were catching them is because it was speed control. Our when we're trolling crankbaits, about the slowest I can usually go is right around 2 miles an hour. With the crawler harnesses, then I could usually using the electric motor, or I'm kicking the boat in and out of gear. But with the crawler harness, it can go as slow as half a mile an hour. Typically, you're going around 3/4 to a mile an hour, but you can go as slow as a half a mile an hour. And that slower speed control really helped put a lot of fish in the boat here. I'm glad I added that to my arsenal of depth and speed control to get that slower speed control out there, and it really helped us. Once so we would use the crawler harnesses, bottom bouncers, checking fish off the top or on the side of this thing, and then we anchored on a finger or point, and that's where we were catching the bigger walleyes. Once again, we say it over and over again. Buck Perry says it over and over again. His material, the home of the fish is deep water, and that's how it is for these walleyes. We're catching these walleyes out of the end of this finger here. I really wish I would have tried this thing, but like I said, there was a boat drifting a little bit close to it, so I settled on this one. And when we went back later in the week, since we caught big fish there, it was just natural for us to put our anchor down over there again. But if I go back, I would say definitely put the anchor and try off this spot over here. And we did catch fish off the saddle over here. And when we were fishing this shallower hump over here, we were catching a lot of eater-sized walleyes here too. But the key to us catching these bigger fish was on this point over here, or these points, and just working the deeper water. We were catching most of those bigger fish in 28 to 30, 32 feet of water. All right, and another area that was very good for us, let me go back to tubes. Don't want that. Let me go back to a map. Google Maps here. All right, that was this big bar over here. That was probably the best structure where we caught definitely caught the most of our big walleyes was off this structure over here. Why I'm looking at this over here too, our friends Bob were up here. This is called Wolf Bay over here, and they were catching tons of walleyes. There's a right off this shore here, and we went over there and checked it out. There is a bar, and you get a little finger or point off the side over here, and it drops pretty good. It's about a 8-9 foot break. It breaks, if I can recall, 12 feet down to maybe 20, 22, 24 feet. And they were catching tons of walleyes there all week, and they told me where the bar was at. Case and I went there, and we were catching a lot of fish there too. I actually caught a sauger, the only sauger we caught on the trip. I always read and heard that sauger were present, and that's the first time we caught one there. I'll throw that clip in there so you can see it. But here's the Wolf Narrows, the big bar. I'll call it the Wolf Bar over here we fished. And then the other spot that we did really good, here's South Bay, is there's a couple humps over here. And there's actually a hump right out here called the seat cushion. If I had to just stay in one section of the lake, it would be right in this area here, this whole area here. In this area here, in the past, you'll have every fish in the lake you'll catch trophy size. You'll find big lake trout, big walleye, big northern, burbos, and whitefish. We've caught them all in this area over here. There's a area here that's nicknamed the seat cushion. It's a hump that crowns at around 20 feet of water, but all the deep water species, the lake trout, burbots, and whitefish, they all relate to the deeper section off that thing. Look up a video we did last year or 2 years ago, and that's where we're catching all the fish. But coming over here, let me even go to Navy Onyx really quick over here. If you look at the Navy Onyx maps, you can sort of see an indication that there is a hump over here. Let me go over to the sonar charts, and you can see that there is indication there's a hump here and a hump here. And what that looks like, let me pull up, that's not it. Here's what that looks like here. You've got the hump on the west end crowns at around 10 feet, and the hump on the east side over here crowns, it's deeper, it's around maybe 20, 22 feet. And you've got this deep water slot that goes in between them, and this deep water I think is 80, 85 feet. And you can fish the shallower sections of each one of these humps and catch walleyes and northerns, and you can fish the deeper sections, 40, 50, 60 feet, and catch your lake trout, whitefish, and burbo. And let me see if I can zoom in. Well, on this, we really didn't spend too much time fishing this deeper hump. It's just time didn't allow it. We were catching so many fish on this hump over here, we just never made it over here. But I'm sure there's big walleyes over here. But we were catching tons of walleyes on this shallower hump over here. In the video, or if you watch Casey's channel, Fishcraft, we'll make several references. We've named this Bob's Hump. We asked the lodge owner, Jim, what these humps were called. He said it didn't have a name, so he says, you guys want to name it? So we said, yeah, we're going to name it Bob's Hump because our friend Bob Rolls is the one that started fishing it last year and was catching fish off there. So we just been calling it Bob's Hump, and that's where Bob's Hump is at. And my 28-inch walleye I caught off of the hump right here. We anchored the boat just as close as we could to the deep water. We probably had the boat in we had the boat in 13 feet of water, and it drops pretty quick. We were casting out to probably 30 feet of water, and those fish were coming up from those deeper depths there. But I caught my 28-inch walleye there, and we caught several other fish, many fish that were over 22, 23 inches off this hump. And I think every time we fished this hump, we were catching at least 8 fish to I think 30 fish. We always were catching walleyes there. But it was another good structure we found over there. And again, just like this whole trip, it was the same speed control. It was mostly a slow speed control that we're catching this fish this entire week. trolling cranks was just a little bit too fast of a speed control. We had to slow it down, and most of our fishing on this trip was done, like I say, with the bottom bouncers or from a casting position, usually throwing out a jig and varying the speed control. And we'll say one thing though, uh, Casey was using a worm, and when fish were inactive and dormant, it was pretty interesting to see. And it didn't happen once; it happened multiple times on this trip, where Casey was probably out fishing me 6-1, where he had a night crawler on there and had it practically at a zero speed, dead sticking it at times to get these fish to hit. Where I was throwing a quarter-ounce jig head with a twister and just popping it very slow, and he would be out fishing me 6-1. But taught us a very, or I should say, I taught Casey a very important lesson on depth and speed control. The second these fish became active, they wanted a faster speed. Then I was out fishing Casey 6-1 with that jig, with that twister tail versus his worm. That happened at least 2 or 3 times during this trip. So it just reminds you that you always got to be checking your depth and speed control. Don't assume that if you're catching them on a slow speed, it's going to be like that all the time. And as soon as those fish become active, they want a faster speed, and that's when the tables turn, and I was catching a lot of the fish. But bottom line, we had a really good trip up there. This was our 4th year in a row going up there. Um, I'm sure if it was up to Casey, he's going to make it 5 years in a row and 6 years in a row. But more than likely, we'll be back. But we got to see what shakes out later this year. I'll show you the fish that we caught on here now. Any questions, leave them in the comments. I'll try to answer them. This is just these 2 structures I talked about where we caught nearly all of our big walleyes. There's half a dozen other structures that we fished that we're catching walleyes on too. But leave any questions you have, and I'll try to answer them. And I'm gonna have a video up here in probably another week. On our way home from this trip, we fished Green Bay, and we did really good out there with walleyes, and I'll have a report for you on that one too. So thanks for watching.
This fish is staying down.
This is Casey's 3rd big fish from this spot here in about 30 minutes, I think we've been here. Guys, we finally unlocked the big walleyes at Red Lake. Casey did, I should say.
Get that net ready. That's a 25. Alright guys, we're quiet because there's a lot of boats here, so. Oh my gosh.
25 and a half.
Let's go. No, guys. 25.
We came back out to the spot after dinner.
Yep.
Where we got a 24, 24 and a half, 25, 25 and a half, and that's a nice one.
Yep, awesome.
All right.
Alright.
Want a picture with your iPhone,
yeah.
and then we'll let them get healthy fish. There he goes. All right. That's 4 big walleyes you caught today?
Yeah. Let's get some more.
All right, man, let's do this.
Alright guys, today we're fishing Red Lake. Sorry about the quality right now.
It's raining. It's raining all day.
Yeah. High of 58 degrees today. Pretty chilly. Winds are high. My dad got a 28-inch walleye. We're about to get the release.
All right. All the big fish are skinny here.
Yeah, we're not filming because it's raining. It's been pretty slow. We just got two eaters.
Legitimate 28-inch fish.
Yes. All right, let's get some more.
I got him this time. Got him this time. I see him. I see him. I see him. I see the big pine.
That's a sauger. That's a sauger. Get it in. It's a sauger.
Woo-hoo-hoo, we got a sauger. They say they have sauger in Red Lake, and this is the first one that we boated. I don't think they're very common, but they are in here. Cool.
Here, let's take a picture.
Nice sauger. Yeah, let's take a picture.
Preview, it's a sauger. No white tip. Well, tiny bit, but that doesn't matter. It's a clearly a sauger. Clearly a sauger. So yeah. All right, sauger. Fat. This guy is fat, man. All right, let him go. 24-inch walleye, Red Lake. Awesome, man. All by myself. My dad was sleeping. Told him I got a big one. Biggest one of the trip. 24. Awesome. Alright, we're gonna get a picture and then let him go. Spot here. And we've caught three. We lost one right after boat. That was a really nice fish. 23.
Booyah! We just went over to the Narrows at Golden Arm, and I hooked up first. We just netted him. It's my turn to get a big walleye now. Casey's been catching them all today. That's about a 23, 24 maybe.
Yeah.
Man, this has been the trip that we've been getting some quality walleye. All right, we'll get a quick measurement on him, and then we're going to release him.
Yep.
Dan?
Get some more.
Oh, there we go. Man.
Another one.
All right, this is just like a minute later.
Oh, bigger one, Dad. Net.
Oh, he wants the net. All right. We're gonna net this pup.
Another 24.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
That's a nice one.
Nice one there. Yeah. That's nice. They're real dark.
Yeah, it's a nice one. 28. No.
Oh, he's 25.
Yeah.
Yep. 25. You want a picture too?
Yeah.
There you go.
25.
That is our sixth walleye today. That was
Yeah.
over 24 inches.
Yeah. This guy's still active. Yeah, look at him.
Well, that week went by super fast on Red Lake. Flies by, but we had a good. Each year is something different. This year, it was the year for walleyes, lots of walleyes, quantity and quality. Prior 3 years, I think the biggest walleye we got out of Red Lake was maybe 23 inches. This year, I sort of lost track. We got at least 9 or 10 that were over 24 inches. The biggest being 28 inches. But walleyes are really good. One thing we learned now is speed control. Most of the week was a very slow speed control. We happened to be on the water during our 2 or 3 activity periods where it didn't matter what you threw out there, the fish were hitting it. But if the fish weren't active, they were neutral or semi-inactive. You really had to go slow. And this is one of the trips that Casey brought along a half-flat of night crawlers, and while he was using night crawlers and I was using artificials, he was probably out fishing me 6 to 1. So you got a really tough condition like that. It does pay sometimes going to live bait. As much as I don't like using live bait, that's what it takes to catch fish. That's what you gotta do. But once again, had an awesome trip with Casey over here, and I'm sure that we will be back again.